The leaders of the parties here in the European Parliament said that they're prepared to extend the period of negotiation over the deal in case there is no vote, because they are very eager to strike the deal or even to remove the request and let the second referendum happen to remain in the European Union.
Of course they did. It's exactly what I predicted when I wrote about this, even before we had the referendum result, when I said exactly what would happen. We have an army of traitors, quislings and collaborators in government and in our Parliament and House of Lords who don't want to leave. So when they got landed with the result of the referendum, which they did everything they possibly could to actually achieve a Remain result, and they couldn't do it. So we got a Leave result, so what are they going to do? Exactly what's happened. They've gone continually to the EU saying, oh, how may we leave, please? And of course the EU comes back with a deal which is totally unacceptable either to Leavers or to Remainers. So then we have this situation in Parliament tonight where this deal is going to get rejected. Then they come back, oh, what can we do now? Oh, and you just said, madam, don't worry about it, because you can reject Article 50, the European Court of Justice have said you can, and you can come back in. This is what they've tried to engineer, not what they've tried to engineer, what they have engineered over the last 2.5 years, a situation whereby we've operated on this false premise that you can't leave without a deal. There is no deal that's acceptable, therefore it's far too difficult, don't leave, come back in, which is what our own government and political class want to do, I have to say. I'm very sorry to say it, but they do. The only way that Britain is ever going to leave the European Union is by a unilateral, unconditional exit, where we tell the European Union, we're leaving, this is how it's going to work. They don't ask, they tell. That isn't going to happen in the short term because we don't have a patriotic government, Prime Minister or House of Commons, so they don't want to do that anyway. But this is precisely why my party, the UK Independence Party, will keep up the electoral pressure in Britain. This is a struggle that's going to go on for months and years to come, I have no doubt.
My question is, everybody said that it will be catastrophe. I mean that it's your Prime Minister who says it, and the leaders of the major political group here in the Parliament say that no deal is a catastrophe, so Great Britain has to sign a deal. But also there are voices saying that it's a punishment deal.
Well, exactly. Of course they're saying that because they don't want to leave, and they're perpetrating this myth that you can't leave without a deal. The only catastrophe is going to be for the EU if Britain leaves, because you're going to lose your cash cow. It's going to show an example to all the other countries of Europe who've got growing Eurosceptic movements in them, and we're going to see a big return of those MEPs in May to this Parliament. So of course they're saying that, but that doesn't make it true. The only catastrophe for Britain is if it stays in the European Union, because if we don't actually leave, we're going to end up with worse terms than those that we had before we decided to leave in the referendum.
How can you explain that a Remainer leads our government into Brexit?
I'm sorry for laughing, man. Yes, how can a Remainer lead the most important political process since the end of the Second World War, which is to take us out of the European Union, and they put a Remainer in? I mean, politics is stitched up in most countries, but in Britain we've been doing it for hundreds of years. We do it best, and it's so blatant, where the electorate know the Prime Minister doesn't want to leave. She's doing everything she possibly can to make it not happen, but because of our first past the post system, Tories, Labour, Tory, they keep getting elected in this musical chairs that goes on in Parliament. If we had a system like the Italians, for example, of proportional representation, you'd see a completely different make-up of the House of Commons, and we'd be able to move this project forward. We don't have that. We have to work under the system we've got. That's what my party does. We'll continue to do that for however long it takes.
Is no deal or Brexit the way to Brexit?
Yes, there never was going to be a deal. What you do is, if we had a government that really wanted to leave, they'd go to the Commission and say, well, what they would do first of all is repeal the 1972 European Communities Act. They'd say to the Commission, we now left under our law, not your law, our law. We've left, we're no longer members. But don't worry, because all EU law stays in place. It's all been transposed into Acts of Parliament and regulations. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to start repealing it and amending it in accordance with our priorities and our timescales over a period of time, because it will take time, because we have 45 years worth of legislation to look at. So the first thing we're going to do is offer you continued tariff-free trade. You can have that, or you can have WTO terms. What do you want to do? We'll come back in a week, you can let us know. Right, citizens' rights, yes, we'll guarantee your citizens' rights in the UK if you'll do that for ours on the continent. And don't forget, you're getting the best end of the deal, because on the continent, in most countries, there aren't social services, there aren't public housing, there isn't a national health service. So our citizens are getting the worst end of the deal, but we'll live with that if you'll agree it. And then we start looking at all the different bits of legislation and deciding how it's going to work. It's in your interest to do that, European Commission, because you need us more than we need you. You sell us far more than we sell you. You want trade to continue, and you benefit from all the other ways that we cooperate with you. And that's what we want: trade, friendship and cooperation, not rule from Brussels.